Hang on. So,
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name's Serge. James, how you doing?
That's my name too. Yeah, I'm not too bad. Yourself?
Good. I was just saying if you're feeling a little blue, because if you were, we've got something to cheer you up. Do you want to introduce our guest?
Blue Moon. We're
Yeah.
joined by Jonny
Trying to
Pringle
trying to segue. You know how it is. Trying to segue.
at FPL Pringle, our Manchester City correspondent. How are you, Johnny?
yeah, good. Thanks, guys.
What do you want to start with? Do you want to start with Messi, FPL
Yeah.
assets, Champions League overturned, Leon game? Where do you want to start, mate?
Messi or Messi. Let's start with Messi or Messi or Messi.
Yeah, we can start with Messi.
Is it possible, in your opinion? And we should say, just for the listeners, that we are pre-recording this about 6 days before release.
Well, this is what I was going to ask: is when is this going to go out?
There you
Because
go.
if it's going out in a week's time, I know this might be a bit of a bold statement, but he genuinely might be a City player by then.
Are you serious, mate?
I don't think people. Obviously, I've been tracking the City forums and obviously all the City journalists, and it sounds like been a bit more going on than the general press are making out. Because I think if you think simply about it, why would Messi have come out and handed it? It's not just him coming out saying he wants to leave. He's actively tried to activate this clause in his contract that says he can leave for free. Now, why would he do that without having assurances from someone else that they would sign him?
I think most people would try and sign him if they could, if it's affordable. Because obviously, yes, free transfer fee, but astronomical wages. We know a lot of that will come back commercially, etc.
Yeah.
I don't think he'll want for suitors. But I know what you're saying. I think that we can all sit here and know that if Messi does leave Barcelona, there's a handful of clubs that could get him, and you are one of them. I don't think that's in doubt.
But I think there's been rumblings basically all summer that obviously, I think ever since the FFP, well, the Champions League ban got overturned, but City were going to have a big summer, and there was rumblings that they were working on something big. I mean, there was rumours that it might have been Harry Kane, because there was all the usual targets like your centre backs, your left backs, your wingers, but there was rumours that they were working on something big, like I say, Harry Kane. Some people suspected Dybala or João Felix, but then obviously when Barca got dumped out of the Champions League, everyone started talking again about Messi, because it just comes up like every couple of years, like, oh, Messi might want to leave, and he just always comes out and signs a new contract and gets more money, doesn't he?
Yeah, basically.
But then this time it felt a little bit weird, and then obviously the other day that he actually announced he wants to leave, and everyone again instantly just said, oh, he just wants to get the board out. But there's been sources from Argentina, from Spain, and in England that are all saying the same thing, but basically saying that this isn't a power play this time. He genuinely wants out, like he's done this time. And then there's been more reports that have come out since that have said City have been doing the groundwork, like they've been in contact with his dad, even like basically as soon as they went out. And it's not that City got in contact, because the stance has always been from City side is that because they're run by the guys that used to run Barcelona, they never want to approach Barcelona for Messi out of fear or out of respect for Barcelona. They don't want to be seen to be actively trying to buy Messi. They said they would, but only if Messi approached them. And the reports say that apparently that's what's happened. Like as soon as they got dumped out of the Champions League, Messi and basically his party came to City and said, what can we do? And I think City basically said, let's do it. And this is why I say it could happen next week, because I can't see it being a drawn out thing. I think it would either happen or it wouldn't. And I think he's going back to, he's due back to be in training on Sunday or Monday. So that would, again, like we say, this would have already happened for the listeners. And if it does happen and this clause has been activated that he can just walk away for free and City have obviously got a contract lined up, I don't see why it would take weeks. If it's going to happen, I think he'd be a City player within 2 weeks.
Wow.
Are we being a bit naive in thinking that City's the only place that he could end up? I mean, there are other clubs that, like, if Messi became available and it was clear that he was, there's going to be quite a few other clubs that would be potentially interested. PSG, maybe Juve. I mean, the Italian clubs never really have the most amount of money.
West Ham.
And well, yeah, we'd have anyone. But I just feel like we're a bit naive to think maybe that City's the only place that he could go. You saw what happened with Alexis Sanchez. United are prone to just getting their checkbook out, maybe to try and scupper a deal. Or is it a case?
Maybe. Yeah, I think you're right. I think there are obvious candidates, aren't there? It's basically who can afford his wages, and it's clubs like PSG, United. I mean, I saw Bayern Munich and Juventus have ruled them out of it, but I'm just going off the sort of. I mean, this is probably me, obviously only looking at City-related reports. But like I said, just thinking about the reasoning, I don't see why Messi would have done this, why he basically would have handed in a transfer request without some assurances. And I think he's probably received them assurances. There's been reports that he's already spoken to Guardiola, like last week. And I don't see why he would have done that without assurances from City. This isn't me, don't get me wrong, this isn't me saying that we're going to sign Messi, because obviously there's a lot to do.
You do know that's what everyone's hearing, Johnny.
Yeah. But I suppose, to sum it up, what I'm trying to say is, I think basically City are 100% actively trying to sign Messi. Now he's handed a transfer request. Whether they can get him for free, I don't know. It's probably unlikely, because I think this clause is complicated, and whether he can walk away from his contract. And if they can't, then it's basically how much Barca are willing to hold him hostage. And then obviously it comes back to the fact that, yeah, he could just turn around and say, yeah, I want to stay. But
that's what makes me think it won't be quick, is the complication on the contract. That's what makes me think that even if this is a go and Messi wants to go to Manchester City, that's what makes me think this is something that isn't going to happen quickly, and therefore probably still wouldn't happen. I'd suspect, my own opinion, as I've said previously, is it'll still be at Barcelona when that transfer window shuts, is what I expect.
And this is part of why I didn't really... Well, not that I didn't want to talk about it, but whatever I say now, by the time this pod goes out, will probably be wholly different. It'll be a massively different situation. Like I say, he might be a City player. He might have announced he's wanted to stay. It might be even more complicated. It might be exactly the same.
Johnny, if he signs, we'll call again.
Indeed.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the best thing to do.
Part of me would be happy if he does sign, because we can finally put that Pep roulette shit to bed, because we will have a City player that we know is going to play every week. And get straight into the team. None of this rotation.
This is a sort of in-joke on City's Twitter at the moment. It's basically saying that they can't wait for Pep to rest him in the Champions League. They can't Pep to rest him in the Champions League quarter-final, only to play him in the Carabao Cup.
Johnny, when that quarter-final, mate?
Oh, it was just if I'm allowed to swear, it was just...
Yeah, of course you can.
It was just an absolute clusterfuck of a game. It seems to happen every year, but Pep seems to come up with a different way of shooting himself in the foot and come up with some weird tactics. There was no need to match Leon up. I can see maybe why he did it, because obviously you saw what happened to us against Arsenal in the semi-final. He wanted to protect against the counter-attack, but it just completely nullified our attack for an hour.
You had no creative player on the pitch, mate.
We had 3 attackers, and it was Jesus, Sterling and De Bruyne, and De Bruyne was playing like right wing, and it's just like he's completely out of the game here. The annoying thing is once he did change it, we scored straight away.
Yeah.
And we should have scored more. Obviously, Sterling's missed, but I think then it comes on to, right, we're back in the game now, and then that VAR decision happens, where the goal probably should have been disallowed for a foul on Laporte. Then Sterling's miss happens, and then they run up the pitch, and it just... I tweeted from a personal account after. It just feels like City never lose normally these days. There's just always massive drama around it. I think Arsenal fair and square beat us in the semi-final, but I can't think of many games this season where teams have just been better than us. There's always just some extraordinary circumstances in the game.
I don't know what you're talking about, Johnny. I mean, in the 2 games that we had against each other this year, we outplayed you twice, mate. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, the Spurs games are specifically what I'm referring to.
It's true. We had 5 shots over the 2 games, and I think you had 45 or something.
Yeah, I remember.
Unbelievable.
And we won 2-0 and drew 2-2. I mean, go figure, right?
You could go through like nearly every game this season and just think of weird reasons why City lost.
Do you think there's an underlying issue for that? I think like Guardiola has to take massive responsibility, particularly for the Lyon game. But is there some sort of underlying issue, you think?
In terms of the Champions League, I think the underlying issue is that Pep just overthinks it every time he gets to that late stage.
Tries to be too clever.
Yeah. Because people talk about Pep being a fraud, as in, he hasn't won a Champions League without Messi. Winning the Champions League is well within his capabilities. It's just he does something daft that stops him every year. Like, I don't think anyone's questioning Pep has the capability to win the Champions League, but it's him shooting himself in the foot. Whether a more general thing about us losing games, I don't know. Maybe it is our tactics. Maybe it is because we play like such a high line. You see Ederson. Remember Ederson getting lobbed against Southampton. Maybe it's because he's willing to try wacky stuff like that. Maybe it's just because we're such an attacking team. Obviously, we're so open, and then with the defence that we've had last season, more stuff has tended to go wrong.
Let's talk about that defence. Is it fair to say in the first instance Ederson didn't have the best season?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know how he managed to get the Golden Boot. I saw some weird stats. Obviously, he kept 16 clean sheets, but we still conceded a lot of goals. So I think, obviously, in the 22 games we did concede, we conceded on average like 1.8 goals. So it's not like we're conceding one. You know what I mean? Every time we get beat, we're conceding multiple goals. I think, like you say, it's fair to say Ederson hasn't really had a good season. Even against Lyon, the 3 goals, he didn't cover himself in glory.
No, I mean, especially on the final goal as well. But Laporte being back fit is going to make a big difference, isn't it? Or have we seen enough in the restart period to make us think that perhaps it's not?
You'd hope so. I think every City fan was hoping so. I think he still did make a difference. I don't think he was as imperious as he was obviously before he got injured last season. But you'd hope that with a decent partner next to him, because I think obviously he had the privilege of, in the 18-19 season, having company next to him, or a fit John Stones who was on some kind of form, whereas last season, when he came back, he had Eric Garcia next to him who's 18, or Otamendi. But I think the thing is that we always notice it's just the back line's never the same, and it must just be so difficult for them, especially Laporte. He's got a different left back every game, got a different centre back to play with. Him and Walker are like the only constants there.
Where do you think Aki will play? Or will he
I think
play?
he'll just be back up to Laporte. But that's not to say that he won't play a lot. I think City's transfer targets are... I think they had wanted 2 centre-backs. I think they wanted a backup for Laporte, a left-sided centre-back, in case Laporte did get injured, because you saw obviously what happened.
Yeah.
And I think they want a big centre-back, a big senior centre-back. The number one name at the vote is Koulibaly. Yeah. It looks like we're probably going to sign him if De Laurentiis stops being an arse. But,
I agree. When Aki signed, I had a lot who came to me and said, look, they're the first choice centre-half pairing now. Aki's better than Otamendi and out-of-form Stones. Garcia's leaving, is that right?
Yeah, he's supposed to be going back to Barcelona.
All right, that'll be part of the Messi deal.
Yeah, just straight swap for Messi, I reckon.
You've got the tools. But I don't see Aki or Laporte moving to right-sided centre-half. I physically can't see that unless it's a necessity. There's no other option.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think you're right in that. I think Ake probably does come straight in as our second best centre-back, probably. But there's this weird thing, isn't there, about left-sided centre-backs? A lot of teams have 2 right-footed centre-backs, but it's alien to think 2 left-footed centre-backs.
Yeah,
so, I don't think that'll happen.
You just never see it. I explained it on one of the pods as being... I think the reason you can get even, say, a right-footed player at left-back is because the percentage of left-footed players to right-footed players is these guys have trained at some point in a left-back position or left-sided centre-half. Ledley King was right-footed, played 80% of the games for Tottenham as left-sided centre-half, but you wouldn't have had a left-footed player playing right-sided centre-half. You don't get yourself in that position, basically. And I think the way you obviously play out from the back is essentially, I think Aki or Laporte playing as right-sided centre-half, I just think it instantly closes off a lot of passing lines because you're going to be drawn to just go to the right back, backwards and forwards, go to the right back, safe every time. So I just think it becomes very unnatural for a left-footed player to play on that side. I'd actually find it more likely that Aki played left back than right-sided centre-half, personally.
Yeah, definitely. I think you're right.
Can you see that as a possibility? Because, I mean, Cancelo had a big chance in the run-in, it felt to me, and didn't really grab it, in my opinion.
He played well in a couple of games before the Champions League, but yeah, I think you're right in that he hasn't nailed down that spot. I don't think I'd really be comfortable with Cancelo as a long-term left back. You need to just have a left back, don't you? You need to have a left-footed left back there. I can see Ake playing there, definitely. I can't see him being the long-term solution. It's a bit strange what's going on with the left back situation at the moment, because you'd think that left back is the most standout position. I think City fans have talked on end about Mendy and Zinchenko and how they both haven't really nailed down that spot. You'd think we'd have been at the front of the queue for someone like Ben Chilwell, who signed for Chelsea yesterday. So I don't really know what's happening there. But yeah, I don't really know why we'd sign Ake to play left back permanently.
You think Ben Chilwell's good enough for City?
I think he's one of them. I thought he was, but there's all the Leicester fans on Twitter.
They're all over it, aren't they?
They aren't that gutted about losing him, and it makes me think, oh, maybe he's not.
And to be fair, to the Leicester fans, they've been like that for months. It's not just because he's now gone. They were saying this to us in February. Like, if he goes, he goes. He's shit defensively. It's basically what they've been saying to us.
I think we were supposed to sign him sort of in like 2018 at the end of the 18-19 season. But then Danilo said he wanted to go. So we had to buy Cancelo, meaning we couldn't buy a left back, and that screwed us over a bit. But I mean, maybe the guys who run City just looked at the situation and thought, there's no left backs out there worth spending 50, 60 million on. Let's just have another go with Mendy. Because if you can get a full season of fit Mendy, he is a very good left back. He was brilliant for Monaco when we first signed him. It's just whether you can get him back up to that level. And it's just how many chances you're willing to give him.
So as it stands now, if we say Garcia's leaving, we think Ake is probably brought in as the left-sided understudy to Laporte, ideally. Does that mean we're left in a position where, as it would stand now in game week 2, we're looking at, say, Otamendi starting, for example?
If Koulibaly didn't sign by then.
Yeah.
If you haven't, there's a big if. Yeah.
Or Fernandinho there, is that more obvious?
I think what they're trying to do, from what the reports that I've seen, I think the four centre-backs they were trying to line up were Laporte, Koulibaly, Ake and Garcia. So apparently Stones and Otamendi were going in the bin. But now Garcia's going to Barcelona. I think they're still trying to keep Garcia, but it's not looking likely. It means that one of Otamendi or Stones is going to stay. I think Stones would probably be easier to sell. I think there'd be more suitors for him. But I think they'd rather keep Stones than Otamendi. But at the same time, Otamendi's got a big wage, and you'd basically have to sell him for free for someone to take him. Because, I mean, I've backed Otamendi up before, but he hasn't had a good season. And I don't think there'd be too many teams that are desperate to get him.
Okay. What are you doing from an FPL point of view then, Johnny? I know, obviously, it's difficult. You're not playing in game week 1, so I can't really say which City players are in your squad. But have you got a plan for like game week 2 or 3 and how you're going to bring them in, and who particularly are you thinking?
I haven't got anyone in my starting lineup at the moment. Like I say, I think I'm in the same boat as everyone else. I don't want to start game week 1 with someone who's not playing. But I am thinking of putting KDB in quite quickly. I think I'm of the same thinking. I think I've heard you say this, James, in that he's just a steady Eddie. Just get him in for the season. You know he's a solid 250 points. A
steady Eddie who is the top point scorer in the game.
Well, this is the thing, is that he's just consistently good.
Consistently great.
I think the other thing is, because you part answered my question, which was going to be De Bruyne versus Sterling at the same price. I think we can see from ownership numbers what the majority of people think at the moment. And that's natural because of what De Bruyne did in terms of overall points last year. But obviously in the restart period, you know, Sterling scored 9 goals and 4 assists in that restart period. Is massive. Outscored De Bruyne by 13 FPL points at the same price. And they played basically similar number of minutes. Sterling played 636, De Bruyne 644. So when you break that down, we've got a little bit of information. It's over 10 games because you had the extra game, isn't it? When we break that down over that period, Sterling's outscoring him. The one thing that really put me off, and what I was hoping to get a better split was sort of hoping he was going to have an easy start, where a lot of the fixtures you'd think in terms of right, is Sterling capable of getting 2 or 3 in these fixtures, which is the sort of thing you need, like the Brighton game is going to be what's got him ahead of De Bruyne, essentially. And I just don't see that sort of fixture for you at the start, bar West Ham away in game week 6. The first 9 is not a brilliant run of fixtures, to be honest. That's not to say that you shouldn't be buying Man City assets, because for me, I'm the same as you, Johnny. I want to get De Bruyne in, if not game week 2, then probably latest game week 3. I think I can live without the Wolves game, to be honest, in game week 2. But I want to get him in as soon as possible. And then fixtures have kind of removed Sterling back off my radar, really.
I think you're right about, just to start about game week 2, I wouldn't be too bothered about bringing anyone in, Wolves away. I think my plan is sort of Aubameyang out, game week 3, De Bruyne in. That's the obvious one.
You won't be alone. There's so many on that route at the moment. Aubameyang, De Bruyne. Everyone can afford it. You don't really have to plan for it.
Yeah. And it saves you a bit of money, doesn't it? De Bruyne is cheaper. How much is De Bruyne? 11.5? Yeah. Aubameyang's 12.
Johnny, everyone's underpriced. Don't look shocked.
Yeah. Apart from when Messi comes in at 14 now. But
we come back to that one. Do you think he can outscore the points that he got last year, De Bruyne? 251. Because I think he's capable of tearing it up and doing better.
He got 13 goals, didn't he, and 23 assists, 23 FPL assists. Like, they are big numbers. Yeah, probably, because he only started taking penalties last 10 games, didn't he? If he's on penalties,
well, yeah.
If he's on penalties, he could get like 15, 20 goals as well as the assists.
As well as saying how well Sterling did in that restart period, I mean, De Bruyne didn't do bad. 5 goals and 5 assists. He's absolutely brilliant.
A lot of people lost patience with him, didn't they, at one point? Because he went through about 4 games where I think he blanked, then didn't start, then started and came off early. I think he went 4 games and got like 3 points or something, and then he just exploded again.
Yeah,
as he does. Watford but that's the thing with De Bruyne is, I don't think he's necessarily one that, this is what makes me worried about him. I don't think he's not an obvious captain pick, because he can have games where he just sits deep in midfield and doesn't get anywhere near the goal. And you're sort of just banking on him getting a penalty. He's a little bit like Bruno Fernandes in that. I know Fernandes is a little bit more advanced for United, but sometimes in games for United, it was a bit like, I just have to hope for a penalty for Fernandes to get a return here. And I feel a little bit like it's like that with De Bruyne. You don't feel like a goal is imminent with him.
I know a lot of people.
I do feel like a chance creation is imminent at any second.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Do you want to captain? Let's say De Bruyne maybe guarantees you an assist a game. Are you willing to captain someone like that?
He's also capable of the extraordinary, the Newcastle goal in December, the Norwich goal on the final day of the season against the weaker opposition. Because another time where a lot of people came off De Bruyne was pre-playing Arsenal in December, where he'd also had a bit of a quiet spell. And then he went to the Emirates and went mental, because in a more high-profile game, he tended to play a little bit higher up the pitch. And that's a regular theme, isn't it? We saw that in the Liverpool game as well, Johnny.
I think that's going back to the point about the more difficult fixtures. I think there is evidence, people put the numbers out there, aren't they? That he plays more advanced and he scores more goals in bigger games because he plays further forward. And the fact that these opening fixtures are a little bit tougher does, again, point towards maybe De Bruyne over Sterling.
A lot of people, I think, moved away from him at the end to try and gain an advantage in mini league. Like if you're playing catch up and the guy at the top's got De Bruyne, I think a lot of people were trying to do something a little bit different and moved away from him. But that last day of the season was a good slap in the face for anyone that was thinking that goodbye Kevin De Bruyne, because it was a firm reminder. That's the point.
He can still do it in those
firm
fixtures,
reminder, yeah. That.
And how many of us captained him last day? In fact, how many, truthfully, even discussed captaining De Bruyne final day? And sitting there obvious all season long, highest scoring FPL player.
Yeah, he was the safe captain on the final day was assumed Sterling, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's who I did. Yeah,
the gamble captain. I did exactly the same. I brought in Sterling, I think the game week before, and captained him on the last day of the season. Just thought it's dead obvious, and obviously look back thinking. But that's my point. Is that obviously it was 2 just absolute bangers, wasn't it? It wasn't like he had. Like the usual FPL asset you'd look to captain is someone who's had stacks of shots in the box, and they're playing someone who's conceded loads of shots in the box. You don't get that from De Bruyne. Like you see, you hope a bit he'll just rattle a couple in from 20, 25 yards. There's not really like you say about his chance creation, but in terms of goal scoring, you wouldn't go with him for captaincy goal scoring stats. But that's why it's so difficult. But you've sort of got to just either stick with him or go without him.
What do you think on Aguero's fitness over the season? Because his price at 10.5 million for his track record when he's fit is a joke. If you knew he was going to play, even as James has said, 30 games out of 38, you'd just stick him in straight away, and you'd probably think he's going to get the golden boot as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is the cheapest he's ever been, isn't it? I think his first season he even came in at 11 mil. It is a very tempting price. I think most people, like me, are sort of waiting to see what his fitness is like. I think some people are a little bit sceptical about how he's going to get over this knee injury. But he seems to do the same thing at the start of every season, Aguero, and that he's played at a World Cup or he's a bit unfit and he'll come off the bench in the first game, score, and then start the next game and score again. And then all of a sudden, it's like everyone thinks, oh shit, I better get Aguero in. It happened exactly like that. That exactly happened last year. Came off the bench at West Ham and scored.
He came off the bench and missed the penalty first and then got it retaken and put it away.
Yeah. And then started against Spurs and scored, and then started against, say, Brighton the next week and scored a hat-trick. So I think it is a wait and see. But it's obviously going to be difficult. Usually you can tell from pre-season about who's going to play for City, but I don't think we're going to have much of a pre-season. And if we do, I still don't think you'll be able to read much into it.
I want to keep him within reach to get to him. I think that's one of the key things for me in terms of if you're looking at going, say, 3 players in between that 6.5 million value, and we know a lot of thinking 2 of them plus a 4.5, for example. I just think the prices of Aguero particularly, and Kane to a lesser extent, mean that there are probably points where you're going to want to fire into that. And particularly for Aguero, it's the looking in the period. If Jesus is out and Aguero's available, I want to fire into that instantly without a second thought about fixture or anything, I think. And then suddenly he becomes very captainable. His goal per minutes is mad. He missed basically all of the restart period. We know so well what he's capable of. I don't feel like what he did last year in the minutes he's played has justified this price decrease in any way at all. I think if he's fit and available, 10.5 minutes, unbelievable.
His minutes per goal last year was still insane. I think it was one of his best, but it's just because obviously his number of goals is why his price has gone down, and because everyone forgot about him in the restart.
0.67 goals per FPL appearance. He's very good. You're looking at 2 in 3. Essentially, it's per appearance.
Yeah.
Talk to me, if you can, a bit, Johnny, about Mahrez, because I had a theory going into game week 30 that he plays regularly during this period where you've got a lot of games condensed together. We'd highlighted this period last Christmas where I think he played 3 90 minutes and a 45 minutes in the space of 4 games in 8 days or something. He plays the games in game week 30 and then we think, fucking hell, this guy's locked. And then for the rest of the season, it just becomes a complete frustration. Even to the point that, you know, as you said, the Champions League quarterfinal changed when he came on the pitch, basically. So what's the thinking with him at the moment? Because it felt like this year he was a lot better and stepped up again to me.
Yeah, he was. And it's a strange one to me because he just sort of got inexplicably dropped. Even was it the Watford game? He didn't start. Watford away, wasn't it? Second last game, he didn't start. So everyone thought, right,
he's definitely playing 38.
He's definitely playing. And he still didn't play. I mean, he came off the bench and scored and got an assist. But I thought he was I thought he was brilliant. I thought he'd be like first choice right winger. He was miles better than Bernardo, who struggled last year. And I was thinking, he's definitely starting against Real Madrid. I mean, against Lyon, I was thinking, right, he's definitely starting against Lyon. And the first person that everyone was thinking, bring off the bench, bring Mahrez on. So I think to City fans, it is a little bit confusing because he's brilliant. He has been a bit of a baller this season. And I think, again, his sort of points per minute or points per start in FPL is brilliant, but he just can't get that reliability of starts on him. I think it's just a bit of I don't think he's a sort of reliable long-term player at his price again. It's sort of just wait for a special circumstance, but maybe to wait for the other players in this position to get injured and then maybe fire him in.
It's another one, 4 goals, 4 assists in a restart period in basically the equivalent of 6 games. It's mad. 8.5 million. You wouldn't think twice if you knew he was going to play. That's all that puts us off, I think. Just want to pull up your comment there, Johnny, on Bernardo. You said you felt he struggled. Was there a reason for that? Because the year before, he was absolutely brilliant, in my opinion.
I think the year before he was absolutely brilliant, and it was because he was playing centre midfield. He was playing right centre midfield, and we all know who plays there now. De Bruyne is not going to be dropped. So he sort of had to go back over to the right wing, which, even though he's good there, he hasn't really got the numbers or the attacking output of, say, a Sterling or a Mahrez. So I think that's why he has struggled for game time there. There was a little bit of kerfuffle, wasn't there, about that tweet that got deemed as racist, and he got did he get banned? I can't remember. Did he get banned or fined?
One game, wasn't it? I think
that seemed to affect him quite a lot, and then his form just dropped off, and he just could never get a run in the team. I think most City fans would like to see him back in centre midfield, but like I said, you're not going to budge De Bruyne. I think whether he plays right centre midfield or left centre midfield is quite important, because I think obviously we're all used to seeing De Bruyne in that sort of right channel floating in them crosses. You just lose that if you were to move De Bruyne to the left. But then Bernardo has such good qualities coming in from the right. You wonder whether he'd get the same effect left centre mid. So, I mean, I don't really see where he, unbelievably, I don't really see where he fits in at the moment. I'm hoping that he does. I'm hoping that he does sort of like nail down a spot, hopefully that left centre midfield spot, because we all love him. But again, going back to Messi, there's been talk of like he might be the fall guy to swap.
Well, you end up with so much attacking midfield talent that someone's gonna have to miss out. And if we talk about all your attacking midfield players that we talked about, De Bruyne and Mahrez and what have you, there's the second most highly owned at the moment City midfielder is Foden, and it's on everybody's lips. Is he going to just slot into that David Silva role? And if he's playing week in, week out, Foden's a must. Now, I personally don't have the confidence in him to know that he's going to play week in, week out. I owned him in post restart, and I didn't play him when he got most of his points. He'd bench sometimes, but it's the fear. If you buy Foden, you've got to play him, haven't you?
I think so. Yeah, I think everyone did think he was going to be David Silva's replacement and play that left centre midfield role, but he really got a run. His run in the team came after lockdown, and he played in the front three. And I think people have realised now he looks more of a forward than a midfielder because of his goal threat. He is, and it's another reason why he started against Madrid, because of his work rate up front and because he's a bit more clinical than Bernardo.
There's got to be room for him in that team now, surely.
There has to be. The benefit he's got is that he's so versatile. I thought he could only play one position as centre mid, but he's shown he played false nine against Real Madrid. He's played right wing cutting inside. He's played as a wide left winger. So he could play. I don't particularly know which his best position is yet. I did bring him in for one of the games. I think it was, I can't remember who it was. But he started and he had two brilliant chances. He missed an absolute sitter.
It might be the Newcastle game, I think.
I think it was. It was the game where I think a few people captained him as well, but I didn't quite go that far. But yeah, he missed a sitter, and I was thinking, because his stats were there, weren't they? His shots in the box, his XG was brilliant. But again, it's just whether we can get the game time. I think you'd probably say with most of these players, it's just like before the restart, they probably will just share the minutes again.
I think on the outside, most of us would just look at it and go, midfield three, Rodri essentially, De Bruyne slightly to the right, a bit further forward, Foden slightly to the left, a bit further forward, crack on, let's get on with it. That's what most of us sit here and think on the outside, and then that allows you Mahrez on the right, Sterling on the left, and one of the front boys. And it seems quite straightforward, actually. I think that's where a lot of the frustration comes with the rotation and stuff, and also this idea of keep playing the kind of double pivots, if you will, of like Rodri with Gundogan next to him. I feel like there's been times this season where City have played with fear, and I think you've got so much quality, you don't need to.
Yeah,
like De Bruyne and Foden ahead of Rodri. You ain't getting a lot of the ball. Worry about it. So
Pep loves Gundogan. I mean, I like him when he plays as the holding midfielder. I think he's brilliant. Two-footed player, always available, very rarely loses the ball. But further forward in number 8 position, Again, I don't think he's got the attacking output. He doesn't have the attacking output of, say, a David Silva or a Phil Foden. And like you say, James, when he plays there, it starts to become more of like a 2 and a 1 rather than a 1 and a 2. And that's where we suffer a little bit. But I think the reason why Pep loves him so much now is because he's the guy who can control the game like David Silva did. And while David Silva was on the wane last season, he basically wanted to play Gundogan there. But yeah, like you say, for all the City fans, it was dead obvious. It was just like, just play Foden there. He's got the legs, he's got the same ability as David Silva. Or
even play Foden in front and play De Bruyne in that position. It's not like De Bruyne can't play that position as well. So, yeah, I think you're right in terms of like the Lyon game and stuff, overthinking. And I think from an FPL point of view, that's what a lot of us get frustrated about, is that he's overthinking things. Put the best team on the pitch. And I think a lot of us think like Foden's he should be part of that team now. On Bernardo, by the way, mate, if you need to reduce some of your wages, I'll fucking take him all day long, mate. He would walk into my team. What a
he'd walk into every team in the world. It's mad, but it's just obviously City have just got so much there. But I think that obviously what's difficult to get out your mind with the City assets is obviously all the chopping and changing the rotation in lockdown. But there was obviously a lot because there was games every 3 or 4 days. When it gets back to maybe one league game a week and then
one Champions League game, one cup,
you might start to see. There was like a clear, like maybe Jesus would play Champions League, Aguero play. You might start to see like clear patterns emerge again. Like I say, it's difficult to see at the moment who's going to play where. But obviously, when you get back to some sort of normal schedule, you might start to see some patterns. So I suppose with the City guys, apart from like De Bruyne and Sterling, like in lockdown, probably just wait and see.
I'm afraid to say that with how condensed this season is going to be, if it goes to plan, that isn't going to show up unless you went out of Europe near the end. Basically, you're going to be playing midweek, weekend every week. I mean, the Carabao Cup basically belongs to you now, mates. You'll be playing all the midweeks of those in between and stuff. So it's only actually at the start, and you ain't got a game. So I think, personally, I think I can live without the Wolves game in game week 2, and I want to attack you straight away in game week 3 for the Leicester game, I think. And De Bruyne would be the priority for me.
Yeah, I think that's the move I'm going to do. Got Aubameyang in, captain Aubameyang out into West Ham, and then just move him straight out for De Bruyne.
Brilliant. We're all doing the same thing. Brilliant. Cheers.
What are your thoughts, Johnny, in terms of wrapping up? What for the season? Do you think you can win the league and close the gap on Liverpool, or are you going to lack the consistency maybe that you're going to need to pip them to the title next year?
No, I think we should be right up there. We shouldn't have finished that far behind them. I think everyone looks at us and sees how good we are and thinks that I don't know how we managed to finish 20 points behind them. I think the hunger had gone a little bit at the start of the season. You saw in games like when we got beat by Norwich, Wolves at home when we got beat as well. And then there was obviously that important game at Anfield where VAR fucked us a little bit in the first 10 minutes. Again, I'm not going to make excuses, but the league title just seemed to get away from us dead quickly. And then as soon as the gap got to about 8, 9, 10 points, it was basically like you could see this Liverpool team just weren't going to let up. I mean, I've been in obviously enough title races as a City fan now to know when a team's got the hunger and a team hasn't. And you could tell very early on last year that Liverpool were going to win it. And I think you'll be able to tell this season again. It'll be interesting to see whether Liverpool retain that hunger, and hopefully that City will get it back, because we've seen Liverpool win it, and because we'll have a few like 4 or 5 fresh new faces.
I think there was an effect on City as early as the Tottenham game in game week 2. Because I mean, look, you battered us and should have won the game. But all I meant psychologically afterwards, it was like, do you know what? With Liverpool, they're going to win every fucking game, basically, is how it feels. That's certainly how it felt in the run in the previous season. You were both doing that. And I think it even quick that early was like psychologically, we can't afford to not be winning these games this season. And then Norwich happened in game week 5 and you're chasing.
Genuinely, like that is exactly what I said. I remember being called like a drama queen and told to stop overreacting. But after that Spurs game, after that Spurs game, I was like, we just can't afford to be behind already. Yeah. I was like, all it takes is one more game to lose, and then you drop points from Norwich, and it's 5 points, and it's like 5 points is like the new 15 points. It's like we're on the back foot now. We can't afford to drop any more points. When you lose to Wolves and you lose to Liverpool, it's basically over.
It was psychological. City won their last 14 games in 18-19. And if they'd not won their last 14 games, would not have won the league. So they knew what they were going up against, basically. Yeah. And I just think it became psychological very early. The other thing we haven't really talked about, but I don't think you disagree with this comment, Jonny, and one of the things we perhaps see the kind of double pivot a little bit more often at the moment is Fernandinho's been very, very hard to replace. But Rodri's about to go into a second season and I think will improve. I think you'll be much better off going to trust in him and two players in front of that. And then I think we'll see more of the Manchester City that we've been familiar with, absolutely blowing people to shit, basically.
Well, just to quickly finish off, I think, and I've seen a lot of this season, a lot of reports, and what Pep has alluded to, a lot of City struggles this season have simply come from not having a centre-back and from Laporte being out. We were trying to protect that defence so much that he was playing like Rodri and Gundogan most games against Lyon. Even though we had Laporte there, he wanted to play three centre-backs because we don't have a fast centre-back. We don't have a physical centre-back. And we were just making so many adaptations to the team just to cover that one position, where now with Laporte back and hopefully Koulibaly there, like you say, and Rodri in his second season, you will just see the shackles off again and you'll hopefully just see the old City back.
I agree. I think Fernandinho, as it stands, if you don't buy, will probably start centre-half game week 1, because I just feel like in terms of the player he is, Guardiola will at least trust him rather than the other guys that I think he just doesn't want to put in the team at the moment. And Wolves against the Jimenez, I mean, from the games last season, is a challenge.
Yeah, I think it's quite clear in the running. He just doesn't really fancy Stones or Otamendi anymore. So I think you're right. If Koulibaly hasn't signed by then, he probably will be Fernandinho that starts the first game.
Agreed. Thank you, Jonny. We'll call again and talk about Messi next week, mate.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, Jonny, always a pleasure. If anybody doesn't follow Jonny, it's FPL Pringle on Twitter. You can find him tweeting about City and FPL and anything else that you need. The truth is, Jonny, we'll probably have to scrap this audio in a couple of days, re-record once Messi signs, and we'll just have a whole fresh new podcast. So thanks for the last 45 minutes, but we probably won't use it.
If he does, you'll probably have to wait a couple of days for me to get over my hangover.
Okay, fair play. We will
still record it. But
fantastic.
You'll have to get over the hangover of Twitter and all the nonsense you'll be hearing as well, mate.
I'd have to take a couple of days off work if we did.
Nice. There we
Good
go.
luck, pal. Thanks.
As we carry on with Correspondent this week, guys, we're staying in the Northwest. Next, we have Burnley, James. We're going to the Northeast first.
We're going from Qatar to Saudi Arabia. Newcastle United next. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, it's going to be a difficult conversation with Sire. So you do stay tuned for that. If you are enjoying Correspondent this week, wherever you're listening to the podcast, make sure you hit the subscribe or follow.
Is Abu Dhabi Qatar? Is that even right?
No,
Abu Dhabi.
No.
Listen, Jonny, you should have jumped in. From Abu Dhabi to Saudi Arabia, I'll cut that bit.
Don't worry about it. We won't get any sponsorship money from
I
there.
I don't cut nothing,
James.
mate.
There we go. As always, listeners, like I said, make sure you subscribe wherever you're listening. Most importantly, stay safe. Ciao for now.
Thanks, Jonny. Cue music, please, man, child.